with a foolish grin is keeping perfectly still.
Am I on now? Hey, there we go. All right. Welcome back. All right, we've got a great presentation ahead. Just one quick housekeeping item before I get started here. I had a number of people ask about presentations at the break. Yes, the presentations will be available on the netpromoter.com site after the conference. So I just wanted to make sure that all of you knew that those will be available to you so you can share them within your organization. Our next speaker is going to talk about the great work that they've done with Virgin Media to really transform the culture of their frontline staff. And we've followed Virgin Media since the beginning of their Net Promoter journey. And when they first came under the Virgin brand, you can imagine what the bar is like to be under the Virgin brand, right? Since that time, they raised their Net Promoter score by 42 points. So significant improvements in Net Promoter, and they're genuine improvements. In fact, I met with one of the customer experience leaders in London later last year, and he shared with me this book. It's called The Little Book of Love. And in the book are verbatim comments from all of their customers, not all of their customers clearly, but from selective customers that talk about the quality of the customer experience they deliver. And they're great stories. One here that I picked out, Rachel, the customer service rep, was amazing. She actually listened to my needs and stopped me taking a package I didn't need and suggested an alternative that fit the bill perfectly. That is customer experience. So this is an organization that's done a lot to transform the culture. And our next speaker, Jill Dean from Brand Biology, is going to talk a little bit about the work that they did with them and the results they've achieved. So welcome to the stage, Jill.
Hi, I'm Richard Branson.
Mr. Branson, your spaceship is ready for blast off.
I'll be right out.
Sometimes I get a good feeling.
Relax. The new collection is only from Virgin Media, including TiVo with Sky channels and super-fast fibre optic broadband.
Sometimes I get a good feeling. Yeah. I get a feeling that I never had before. No, I get a good feeling, yeah.
Yes, I can. Doubt, better leave. I'm running with this plan. Pull me, grab us in the bucket, can't have me. I'll be the president one day. January 1st. Oh, you like that gossip? Like you the one
Thank you.
What gossip.com. Now I got a word for your tongue. How many Rolling Stones you want? Yeah, I got a brand new spirit speaking in this tongue.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jill Dean. I'm CEO of a company called Brand Biology, as Deb's just said. And my company is a brand experience consultancy. And what that means is we design programs for our clients, like Virgin Media, to help them engage their employees with the brand and to change the behavior of employees to meet the brand requirements. We're based in Bristol in England, in case you didn't get the accent. And thank you very much for inviting us here, Satmetrics. We presented at their London conference last year, so I'm really delighted to be here today. Our clients are mainly national, multinational organizations, a lot in the UK. We work across Europe and in the Middle East. We also have started working here in the US with a couple of clients a couple of years ago. But the story I want to tell you today is the Virgin Media story. And as Deb has said, it's quite a brand to live up to if you're part of that organization. And organizations like Virgin Media, and probably many of yours, invest considerable sums of money, time and investment in their brand to differentiate themselves in the marketplace, to get that extra bit. So it's quite a take, and it's quite an ask of anybody who works for that company to actually deliver on that brand promise. And if you like, all organizations, all of you included, whether you like it or not, your brand does make a promise to its customers, but also to your employees, because you are making a statement about what you stand for, and you have to deliver on that brand. And that's actually our ambition. It's to help organizations bring their brands to life, deliver on their ambition, whatever the circumstances. So I'd like to talk a bit about Virgin Media and the circumstances. This session is called When Grumpy Tech Meets Grumpy Customer, It Can't End Well, or Can It? Well, I'd like to show you today how it has ended well with Virgin Media, how they have achieved, as Deb said, improving their Net Promoter Score, and how they've managed to get a discretionary effort from their employees. Because our take and our proposition to you is that whether you like it or not, your brand does have this promise, and it's your employees who dictate whether the brand will deliver or not. I'd like to introduce you to Virgin Media, though, to the guy who brought us in to work with him. His name is Maurice Dorr. He made a big mistake. He really wanted to come to Miami and couldn't for work reasons. And I'd like to say, even though it was raining yesterday, the difference between rain here and rain in the UK is about 20 degrees. So I've reached a new low because I now like warm rain. And I'm going to tell Maurice that when I get back. So I'd like you to watch a little bit of film where Maurice will tell you some of the background to this story that we want to tell you today.
I'm the Chief People Officer at Virgin Media, which is really the HR Director for Virgin here in the UK. I'm not a traditional HR person. I've had a career in manufacturing and supply chain, working for people like Cadbury's and Unilever. And I became the Chief People Officer, the HR Director, in the summer of 2013. Virgin Media is the UK's cable company. About half of the UK is cabled. We have 5 million customers, a turnover of just over 4 billion sterling. And we are the provider of superfast fibre broadband, pay TV, fixed telephony and also mobile. Virgin Media is the biggest company in the Virgin family, but we're now part of Liberty Global. Liberty Global are a huge international cable company with operations in 14 countries, and we're now part of that family. We joined them in the summer of 2013 when they bought us, and we're now part of the biggest cable company in the world. So we became Virgin Media in 2006 through the merger of 3 companies. There were two cable companies, Telewest and NTL, and Virgin Mobile. It was a very difficult time for the UK cable industry. We were struggling financially. We had an appalling record of customer service, and we were basically fighting to stay alive. And we managed through the implementation of superfast broadband to start to grow the company again. But I guess our biggest problem back in 2006 is that we instantly became a Virgin company. Customers, ordinary members of the public, have this vision of what a Virgin brand stands for. Great service, great passionate people. And so we had an issue that our customers' expectations shot up. And to be fair, so did our employees. Our employees suddenly thought, hang on a minute, I'm now part of the Virgin family. I need to be treated differently. I need to think differently. And that was a real watershed for us in the early days of being a Virgin company, how as a management team we responded to that expectation. The Virgin business philosophy is very different to a traditional one, and it's something that Richard Branson, the founder of the Virgin Group, has talked about for decades. He says very simply that traditional businesses tend to focus on shareholders first, customers second, and put their employees a distant third. But Richard thinks the other way round. He actually deeply believes that deeply engaged people do give you discretionary effort. And that's what customers notice. Customers then will stay with you longer, take more services, rave about you to their friends and families, and that's what looks after their shareholders. And we've really tried to live up to that business philosophy since 2006. And we've now got the results to prove that actually he is absolutely right. You have to put your people first. Our people were in a pretty grim place back in 2006. I talk a lot about Grumpy Mick, the day I went out with a service technician where he really didn't feel helped and supported by the organisation. He felt very lonely, he hadn't been trained properly, he didn't have the tools for the job, he didn't have a very good manager, he couldn't tell me the last time he'd had any training. He'd certainly had no training in customer satisfaction or understanding the customer. So we had to really focus hard on giving him the tools for the job, giving him the processes, giving him the systems, giving him the equipment that he needed. But we very quickly learned that that isn't enough, in that you need to think about how people behave what are their behaviours, what are the way they talk to customers. And that's really where we started talking to brand biology in terms of how they could help us.
So, back in 2008, when Morris asked us to come and help, he said he wanted to start in what's known as their access division, which is where the guys are out there in the field coming to your home to either install or fix whatever services you bought from Virgin Media. So there are about 2,000 of them across the UK at the time. And actually at that time, the install part, which is the bit where you get all the new sexy stuff you've been looking forward to, was actually done by what they call outsourced partners. So the guys we were being targeted to help and to turn into the Virgin brand were the guys who were turning up when it had all gone wrong. So there was a fault, they'd arrive at your home, and they were there to try and fix it. So what Morris asked us to do was to turn this part of the business into a Virgin brand, and our measure was going to be NPS. At that time, their score was actually a negative figure, so it was no mean challenge. We had to think about how to do that, and Morris gave us a second challenge in actually trying to do it too, which is a whole cultural bit, because he said, and he mentioned this guy Mick when he was out on his travels that he'd met, who was pretty grumpy, and he said, I want every single tech, as they call them, their technicians, out there in the field to feel like there are 20,000 people behind them when they knock on the customer's door, willing them to do an awesome job. That was all he asked us to do. So, we had to think carefully about how we were actually going to do this. We set about designing a program called Simply Brilliant, and the theme behind it was that's what we wanted it to be. Simply brilliant, not just for the customer, but for the employees, for those techs who go out there and arrive at your home. That was our mantra. So we decided the first thing we needed to do was to really get out into the company and find out what it was like out there, to find out why people like this tech they were talking about, Mick, was so grumpy. Because we needed to find out what was the gap between the reality of what was actually going on and the ambition, that Morris told us to get out there and sort out. So the first thing we did was spend some time out in the organisation talking to managers, talking to staff, trying to understand what it was like. But the most important thing I think we did back then was to actually go out on what's known as a ride out, which is where you go out into the organisation. Sorry? Did
you say ride out? Did you go on that?
Well, I didn't, no.
Well, you didn't go on that? Right, okay.
No.
You're a CEO, aren't you?
Yeah, yeah, I am.
I can tell you've got a nice dress and all that. What's the view like from the Ivory Tower? It's all right. It's all right.
Good on a good day.
So, yeah. Sorry, this is very un-British, isn't it?
It's all right, just leave him.
It's all right, don't worry, don't worry. Okay, so you didn't go out on the ride-outs yourselves?
No, someone on my team did.
Right, okay. Your name is?
Jill.
Jill, right.
And yours is?
I'm Mick.
Okay,
All right,
Mick.
okay. So, very, very interesting. All right, you talk about brand experience, yeah? Shall I tell you what the real experience is like? Do you want to know?
Well, it kind of looks like you're going to, so yeah, carry
All
on.
right. Well, let me tell you exactly what it's like for me, all right? In the morning, I get in my van, and I have to battle through traffic, all right? Now, over here, you guys are lucky. You've got loads of space. You've got loads of room, okay? Across the pond, not many roads, okay? Too many cars, too many people. So I get stuck in traffic jams, all right? Battling across. If I'm lucky enough to get to a customer's house, yeah, I have to deal with a certain kind of person, all right? The most hated people in England, yeah, apart from Manchester United, yeah, they're traffic wardens, okay? So I turn up, and it's very difficult to park. So I'll get slapped a ticket by a traffic warden that has to come out of my pocket, all right? This is all before I get to the customer's house. Then I arrive at their house, and do you think they're happy to see me? No? Okay. Because normally something's gone wrong. They've been mucked about by the call centre, and then I turn up and they see what I'm wearing and they think I'm the enemy, okay? They got a face like this guy here, yeah? We got a saying in England about a bulldog chewing a wasp, all right? That's what your face looks like. You want to kill me. That is the face that greets me every single day. Now, if I'm lucky enough to get into the customer's house, And some of these houses, you wipe your feet on the way out, believe you me, all right? I get in there. It's true, seriously, yeah? And this lot want me to be the best friend with the customer. They want me to be a salesman. They want me to upsell. They want me to cross-sell. I'm not a salesman. I'm a tech. And I often don't have the right equipment for the first place. And selling to the great British public, I don't know what you lot are like here, but it's a very, very difficult task. And I've got to do this in 34 minutes, from start to finish. And do you know how many jobs I have to do on a day? Have a guess. Come on, don't be shy. I'm not going to bite hard. 8. All right, 8, yeah. 8. That would be a brilliant day, okay? It's not 8, all right? I have to do 12, and on a Monday, they think, you know what, let's start the week nicely. Let's give him 16 jobs to do, all right? I don't get a lunch hour. Now, that is what it is like for me out there, all right? I can't remember the last time my manager came out, or last time I had any training. So, that is what the reality is like, I'm afraid, okay? We are set up to fail. We are set up to fail. Sorry, all right? I'll let you get back to what you got to do. Sorry, everybody, all right?
I think you'll agree we've met a grumpy tech. But do you know, he had reason to be grumpy, because if you listen to what Morris said and to what he's saying, that is one mean job out there. And think about it, because Mick was recruited for his technical skills, not his people skills. That's what he's good at. He's good at fixing things. That's what he'd been employed for originally, and we come along, as he says, and suddenly ask him to do something in an on-brand way, and to, you know, as he says, be nice to the customer and sell to the customer. So our challenge was, how are we going to get him to do this? Because that's how grumpy he really was. So Mick actually appeared in every single part of the programme and every event that we ran throughout the Access division. And at every event, he did what he did just then, in front of directors, senior managers, and middle managers, frontline, and all the other techs. Because we wanted to confront the reality and to confront the real issues that he was up against. There was no point in sweeping this under the carpet. He isn't going to listen to senior management or us if he doesn't think that A, we understand what it's like out there, and B, that we respect it, that we really get what he's up against. So Mick became quite famous through Virgin Media. He was always there, and he was always saying to everyone out loud what it was like. It gave us another opportunity, though, because it allowed us to say to Mick and his colleagues, let's look at what effect how you're feeling and behaving is actually having on the customer and the customer's experience. So why don't we do that now?
Yeah, Linda, look, I will speak to Tim. You know, it's all part of my plans. It's just that I'm waiting for an engineer to arrive to fix my television. He was supposed to be here 2 hours ago, and it's getting a bit frustrating. Linda? Linda? Christ.
Virgin Media.
You're late. You are very late.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. It was an absolute nightmare getting across town. Traffic was just absolutely chock-a-block, so I got here as quick as I could. It was just...
The last two technicians that came and failed to fix the fault at least had the courtesy to ring me before they came to tell me they were going to be late. What makes you so special?
Well, like I said, I was just battling across town to get here, and I couldn't actually find anywhere to park outside your place, so I'm on some double yellows. The traffic wardens around here, what they like, because I need to know if I need to go and move that. Or...
I don't know. I don't know any of them.
Well, no, but I mean, I need to know, so because I have to pay for that if I get slapped a ticket.
Oh, look, just spare me a sob story. Can you just come in here and do the thing you're paid to do, please?
All right. Nice place you got here, sir. Yeah.
What? You're an interior designer?
Is that the culprit?
Well, if you mean set-top box, then yes.
Right, okay. Let's have a look. So you've got freezing images, got no picture. You've had a couple of people out to see it already. So, all right. Well, third time lucky.
What?
Oh, so third time lucky, Will. Yeah.
Okay, you're the third person that's come to fail to fix this fault. I have lost God knows how much time with my key clients because of your shoddiness. You swan in here and you start talking about luck. What's that all about?
Right, it's a turn of phrase, sir.
Well, it's a silly turn of phrase. I don't like it.
Right, okay. Right.
What are you doing?
What?
What are you doing?
Well, I'm checking the signal levels.
No,
I need to
the
check
last
that-
two guys who came, they did that. They checked the signal that the red thing was off the scale. It's all fine. You don't need to waste time.
Right,
doing
okay, well, with all due respect, so I wasn't there. So what I want to do
that.
is...
Okay, with all due respect, I was, and I'm telling you, it's fine. So no need to waste your time doing that.
You're the boss.
Well, in this situation, yes, I am.
Right, if I could just ask you to move back so I can get there and...
Well, there's plenty of room.
Just going to have to move some of this...
Yeah, just be careful, please.
I'm not going to damage it.
No, it's okay, yeah.
Right, well, I need to...
Just put it down there. What are you doing?
I just need to pop back to the van quickly, just
Right.
get you another bit of kit.
What kit?
I just need to get you another set-top box.
No. That's exactly what the last two guys did. They came in here, they swapped the box, they had it working. The moment they left, the telly just went all kaput again. I'm not having that.
Well, okay. Well, I mean, like, you know, I think it'll probably be the best thing to do. Do you know what I mean? I mean, we...
No. No, probably about it.
No.
You are not doing that, okay? It's not acceptable.
Okay, well...
Your company is a joke. Do you realise that?
Right. So I'm trying to help you here. Okay?
Well,
I'm trying
help me by finding the real fault and fixing it.
Right.
Is it really that difficult?
Look, I think we've had some faulty set-top boxes recently, so I think...
there we go. You've been fobbing me off with crappy equipment.
I didn't say that, did I?
Crappy, faulty, it's the same thing. Look it up. You know, it's just not good enough.
So do you want me to go to the van, get you a new set-top box, or do you want...
No, I want you to come in here and talk about how nice my house looks. What do you think I want? Is this going to fix the problem?
Hopefully it's going to...
Is this going to fix the problem? No, hopefully about it.
Yeah, it should do it, yeah.
Right, well, let's do it then, yeah?
All right, okay. Do you want me to, like, leave the door on the latch, or...?
I don't care, just let's
All
get
right.
it done,
All right,
please,
so
yeah?
Just trying to help.
Just do it already.
Yeah, all right. Grumpy git.
So I think we've now met the grumpy customer. I always want to say at this stage, it's unlike the movies because this is based on real life, and the characters that you've seen there and the situation you've seen were things that we saw going on out in the organisation. And it had to be, because it had to be credible and it had to be real, because we were trying to challenge Mick to think differently and to respond differently. So he needed to see himself coming the other way and to see what effect that was having on the customer. Because go back to the fact that he was a tech, not a people and customer person. He hadn't been trained in that. So we were starting to get him to think about, why do people behave the way they do? Why do some people, you know, bite and other people don't? What's behind all that? And that's what we wanted to do on the programme. So I'd like to do a little bit of that today. So I'm going to ask both Mick and our customer David back on stage and just ask them a few questions so we can try and shed a bit of light as what's going on in their minds. I'm just going to stand back in case he shouts at me.
Right.
I'm fine.
Good.
Are you?
Yeah, I'm
Good. Anyway, I think we'll start with Mick. He's not quite as scary. Mick,
Right.
How do you think that went? How was that? Because one of the things that Virgin Media wanted to ask Mick to do was to deliver what they call a heartfelt customer experience, heartfelt service, to really show that you care about the customer. So how was that, Mick?
That's great, one of those words, heartfelt service. That's something that's been dreamt up by a marketing team, yeah, that don't actually get out and see the customers. It's very hard to build a relationship with a customer who wants to rip your head off. Do you know what I mean? It was very, very difficult, very awkward, and you know, I tried my best there. Do you know what I mean? I mean, I don't know who would want to build a relationship with that kind of guy. You know, not even his cat, probably.
So do you enjoy your job, Mick?
At this moment, no. After a visit like that, not at all. But look, I have some days when I do. Yeah. I'll give you an example. Yesterday, I went to this old bloke's house. I set up TiVo for him. He'd left a parking cone outside his house so I could park the van. I went in, I had all the right equipment. There was a cup of tea waiting for me. I set everything up. I talked him through it. I know for a fact, yeah, I will get a 10 from him. He will write personal recommendations, absolutely. But that is one of those rare occurrences where everything gels and comes together at the right time. So you don't get those days often.
And obviously that wasn't one of them. So
no.
Do you think there was anything you did that actually affected that situation?
Well, hindsight, yeah, it's a wonderful thing. It's a thing that people can have who have a lot of time on their hands. No? So I'm not having another go at you. I know. Look, yeah, I don't have the time to think about that. All right, hands up. Yeah, I should have called him before I got there. Yeah, my bad. All right, I should have done that. But, you know, I don't know. I got in there and I tried to do the best, all right? It's very difficult. I'm not even meant to be on that job, right? The PT, well, principal tech, or proper tosser, as we like to call him, you know? Excuse my Britishness. You know, he was meant to do that job, but he handed it over to me. Now, I'm not trained to deal with customers like that, so it's a bit beyond me. Sorry. No?
Okay, thank you. Can we come to our customer now, David?
Yes.
David, how was that for you?
Pathetic.
Right. Do you want to tell us a bit more?
Yeah, I mean, basically, this is the third visit I've had from an incompetent engineer. I work from home a lot. I'm delaying calls to key clients, waiting for this guy to turn up because I don't want to be interrupted. So what I expect when he arrives is for him to take away my stress, okay? But his whole manner, his whole tone, everything just added to my stress. And, you know, I can be a bit of a pain, I admit that, when I'm stressed, you know, but, you know, he should be taking that away from me.
That's fair enough. Do you think there was anything you did as part of, you know, that whole visit that actually affected the way it ended?
Well, if anything, I rescued that situation. I don't know whether there's something behind me or what, but no, seriously though, if I hadn't kept the pressure on him, I think he would have fobbed me off with another bit of faulty equipment. At least now I'm ensuring he's not going to do that. Anyway, what do you mean me? I mean, at the end of the day, who's the customer here, is my question to you, Gillian.
You obviously are. So,
yeah.
We do want to ask you a question in a moment, because in the spirit of NPS, we'd like to know what David is likely to do when he's asked, how would you rate that particular experience? But I thought, as a bit of interest today, it'd be good to know what you guys think. So, just as a very quick and dirty way of doing it, hands up anyone who would be a promoter of Mick here. How would you have scored him? Anybody that would give him a 9 or a 10? Deathly silence? No. Okay. What about anything from sort of 5 to 8 then? Anybody suggest that you would have rated that experience as a 5 or 8? Or 5 to 8? Any hands? Oh, good. We've got a few supporters there. So obviously think Mick got some things right. We'll perhaps hear what you think in a minute. What about the rest of you then? 4 and below? Yeah, so I'm not sure. It's sort of fairly mixed there. I think we've got a fairly mixed group. Just ask anybody anybody willing to shout out for a minute, who was in the sort of 5 and above. Why did you rate it? Why would you have rated it at that? He was trying, wasn't he? Yeah. So it was hard, and it was quite hard to do because it was quite a tough situation. Okay, that's nice. What about those of you, though, that said less than 4? Anybody want to shout out why? Sorry?
Fixing my problem's the only concern. I don't care what else is going through what happened.
Yeah, and for this particular customer, fixing the problem was his only concern, and that's what he wanted. So because he didn't fix it, that was the end. Okay, so perhaps we can ask our customer what he would do then. David?
Well, I can't believe some of you have scored it so high. I mean, that just shows it wasn't your television that was broken. You're clearly not able to see it from my point of view. I expected better, frankly. I suppose the temperature here is a bit better, so a bit less grumpy. No, look, okay, all right. I mean, nice, yeah. I'm not interested in nice. I'm much with this guy. Let's get the job done. You know, I am paying for it at the end of the day. I know that's a bit merciless, but that's where I am. So I would give him, you know, I mean, he didn't swear, and he didn't nick anything. You know, I'd give him a 2.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right.
Right, thanks.
Yeah, come on, chop. Okay.
He's quite a scary guy, isn't he? And a rating of 2, so you obviously are far more generous than we are in the UK. So what I'd like to say to you then is, having watched that and having heard what they've got to say, and that's what we did when we were running our program and running it with the techs. They would watch that kind of scene, lots of scenes like that and scenarios like that, and trying to dig a bit deeper. You find some things out about customers, but I guess what I'd like to share with you is a sort of more general view about what do you have to do to turn Mick around, to get him engaged with what we're trying to do and to change his behaviour. So just a few things that I'd like to say to you. The first thing is something I've mentioned already, which is about confronting the issues of real life. And that means doing what we did, saying out loud what Mick is thinking, but also the realities of the situations he finds himself in, like the one that you've just seen. And to really confront those and not try and hide them under the carpet, to make them real, to actually make them authentic and credible. But as I just alluded to a moment ago, it's also about people, and it's also about equipping Mick to understand why people behave the way they do. And we call that harnessing the power of personality. Because if, like us, you believe that we're not all the same, and I think that was just demonstrated by the difference in scoring in here, because depending on what you want and how you like to be treated and what's important to you will affect how you rate an experience. So to understand personality and to understand behaviour, the first thing you have to do is understand yourself. What do I like? How do I like to do things? But secondly, to then recognise that a lot of the population don't see the world the way you do. And if they don't, you have to understand how they see that world. But you also have to be able to recognise them. And again, that comes back to the reality. So to create real situations and real scenarios, and to understand personality and real people, and to see how that behaviour translates out is what we set out to do. So that Mick could understand why what he was doing with that customer wasn't working. Why did it not work? Because that guy, like our colleague in the audience here has said, he just wanted it fixed. He didn't want to have a chat. He didn't want to talk about what his interior looked like. That's just what he wanted. But as Mick alluded to, sometimes he gets on really well with a customer because probably that customer's more like him. And it's a truism. If you want to increase your NPS scores, you have to treat people as individuals. You cannot have a one-size-fits-all. And that's what we had to equip Mick to do. But the third element is what we call creating an emotional impact. So to combine confronting reality with harnessing personality, you have actually got to create an emotion. Because it's a well-known thing that logic does inform, it doesn't change behaviour. What changes behaviour is emotion, when you feel like you've got to do something differently, and that's what we set out to do. So in my mind, we're talking about brand activation. How do we activate your brand to deliver your differentiator to your customers, but also to your employees? And if you put these 3 things together, we believe that you will actually activate your brand. However, there was a bit of a larger problem than that, because that's fine. We had got Mick on side. We'd started to create his change in behaviour. But go back to the challenge from Morris. He wanted Mick to feel like there was 20,000 people behind him willing him to do an awesome job. So we had the senior management team behind this. They believed in it. They wanted to do it. But we had this whole swathe of managers in between that we needed to convince too. I'd like to show you why.
Oi, Mick, get your bum in here.
What? Nigel, I'm just about to go to my first job, so I've got to...
No, I've got Tony to cover that. Get in here sharp, will you? Pronto.
How you doing, you all right? How was your weekend? It was good. It was Rosie's 5th birthday, so we had a marquee. All her mates came out and got a magician in. It was, it was great, man. It was good. I can't believe she's 5 already. It's you? Did you get up too much? Do?
Nope. Okay, I've called you in because I want to discuss a couple of issues with you.
Sounds a bit serious.
Well, potentially it is, yeah. Now, looking at the stats here, I can see you've hit your target in terms of average number of calls made on a monthly basis. However, there are 3 separate occasions when you've only managed to make 10 and not hit your target of 12. So I want to explore that with you.
All right, well, I mean, that's only, 3 times in the...
Yeah.
Hold
up, I haven't finished yet. On top of that, what I'm concerned about is the number of set-top box swaps you're making, or comfort swaps, as we like to call them in the trade.
No, all right, well, we don't like to call them comfort swaps because, I mean, out there on the front line, that's not what it's viewed as.
Well, that's what they are. It's when you don't know what you're doing, so you swap the box.
All right, with all due respect, Nigel, it's a little bit more complex than that.
Okay, so what I've put together and what I've got here, and personally quite proud of, is a league table. Okay, now you'll see there, can you see all right? Yeah, you can see the names of the technicians on the team. You recognise those names as your colleagues. Here we've got the number of set-top box swaps each technician is making. Now, this is a league table which you do not want to be top of. This is a league table that if you are top of it, you do not get promoted. Okay? Now, can you read the name at the top of that list for me, please?
Are you being serious? Well, it's my name, isn't it? It's
Mick Sullivan. Is that you?
Well, yeah, of course it is.
Okay, so we have a problem, don't we? Okay, now, I don't need to tell you how much this is costing us as a business, let alone the impact it's having on your NPS scores.
Oh, look, please, can we not go on about NPS, all right? Listen, you always tell us, that you want us to fix this first time for the customers, and sometimes the comfort swaps, as you like to call it, I mean, that's the best thing to do. And look, we have had a run of faulty boxes recently, and I don't want to dob anyone else in it, but look, I mean, Nigel, in my defence, mine's not the only name that's down there, is it? So
Okay. Well, you made 2 points there that I need to address. Firstly, regarding the other technicians. Don't worry, I've got all the data here, I've got all the information I need. I will get to them one by one. Don't you worry about that.
That's not what
Okay, secondly, you make the accusation there about faulty equipment. Well, I have no evidence or information or facts on this system to back up that accusation that you're making.
But what did I just say? I mean, I'm telling you.
Well, I'm telling you, and I'm your manager, so you need to listen. Okay? You're clearly, get your head up, you're clearly not diagnosing the fault properly.
No, I'm not going to accept that, all right? I diagnose the fault correctly every time, all right? What makes it very, very difficult for us to be able to do that is when you have some customers who are aggressive, who are breathing down your neck and standing right...
Whoa. Put the attitude back in the box.
Oh.
Don't bring that in the room.
I don't have an attitude. I am trying.
It's not helping, okay? Who's it helping? Who's it helping, Michael? Nobody. All right? Let's try and keep this constructive, all right? Now, let's focus on the solution, not the problem. What I'm prepared to do is go on a number of visits with you, 2 customers. You can watch me deal with a customer, and then you will do it, I will observe you, and I will give you some honest, helpful feedback.
Right, so let me get this right. You're going to come out and see the customers?
Yes.
Yeah, that'll be a first.
Pardon?
Sorry?
What?
Nothing.
Right, so I've found a window here, Monday morning, and I can squeeze you in then.
Right, no, that is the worst possible day. Monday's a nightmare. We have like 16 jobs already lined up for that day.
Okay, so we're going to be under pressure. That's when the best learning is done. Now, let's remember here, I am trying to be helpful with you, Michael.
Well, all right, well, if you really are trying to be helpful, then can we not do this on a Monday? Because like I say, Monday is absolutely chock-a-block.
Yeah, okay,
It's just going to be the worst.
Okay. Well, Monday it is then.
Unbelievable.
Now, I think that's me done. Done and dusted. Okay, so now, everything else. Everything else okay? You happy? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good. That's good. We finished early. So that means you have a little window there, about 5 minutes. You don't need to get in your van yet. Get yourself a coffee. It's number 23 on the machine. Just fill your boots.
Wow. Well.
All right.
Right. All right. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you take care.
Yeah.
And it's good talking.
Now you understand the problem. And I just want to remind you that these are based on real life stories. And this was back in 2008, and we've moved on considerably since then. But I think it does show you what the problem sometimes can be when people have data and numbers and the power that they can use and the way they might use it. But I'd like us to do what we did a few minutes ago and invite our manager and Mick back up on stage, and let's have a little chat with them. So the manager is Nigel, and let's ask Mick to rejoin us too.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
A nice dress.
Thank you. Can we start with you, Nigel?
Yes.
Yeah. Was that a fairly typical conversation between you and Mick on your text generally?
Yeah, pretty standard. Got the message across very clearly. That's important. And, with people like Mick who've got that little bit of attitude, we have a few of them, you've just got to back it up with facts, data, the statistics, if you like, to really back up what you're saying, to really ram the message home. So, no, pretty happy with that.
You did go on about the stats quite a lot, though.
Well, unfortunately, you have to, because ultimately, that's what we're judged on. If we don't hit our stats, then we don't get paid. And that's no good, is it? No,
okay. One of the things that, Virgin Media wants all of their employees to do, so it's one of the things we're trying to do to deliver the brand promise, is to have an insatiable curiosity about each other, to really understand what makes people tick. Yeah. So in this case, Mick, do you think you understand what makes, do you think you did that?
Insatiable curiosity, it sounds a bit kinky, doesn't it, to be honest? Well, the thing is, I would love to do that with Mick, but unfortunately, some guys just don't have it in them. So you've got to fill that gap for them as a manager. You've got to fix the fault, as it were. You've got to carry them a bit, and that's what I very much do with Mick. I give him a lot of attention, and I keep him on it, and that's, that's good management as far as I'm concerned.
So do you think you know what makes him tick?
Oh, very much so, yeah.
Okay, perhaps we'll find out, shall we? Mick, can we talk to you?
Yeah, of course.
How was that for you?
Well, it was a time of my life I'll never get back. It's gone. I don't know quite what was going on there. It was, the whole league table thing and the finger pointing and then, this coming out of me on the, it was a nightmare.
Do you think Nigel understands what makes you tick?
He hasn't got a Scooby. I don't think he's interested in that. Do you know what I mean? he is a man who eats stats for breakfast. It's all about that. It's me as a person, not interested.
I don't think he gets you.
No.
Okay. Interesting, because obviously Nigel does think he knows what makes him tick. So I guess, Mick, we could, ask you the same question as that we asked our customer earlier.
Yeah.
If we were to ask Mick to score that manager and the experience as an employee in NPS, what score would he be likely to give him? So again, before we ask you, perhaps we can ask the audience, if you were Mick and this was your manager, how would you rate him in NPS? Any 9s and 10s out there?
There's bound to be a few.
No, I thought you'd agree with us. Okay, anybody in the sort of neutral zone? Anybody like to rate this manager, 5 or above?
He's got his thing on.
Was that a vote, sir?
I think it is, yeah. Write it down.
Okay, so I think we're all kind of agreed on this. It's not going too well. Okay. Perhaps ask you, just before we do ask Mick again, any reasons? What's your thinking? What would be your main reason for giving him a 5 or 4 or less? Yeah. So he missed the opportunity to connect with Mick. I don't think he connected with him at all, did he? He had loads of opportunities in there and didn't do so. So shall we actually ask Mick what he thinks?
Well, look, I mean, I know the guy's under pressure himself from the head of department. I do get that, yeah, and he sometimes tries to out, but it's like, judged on that, what happened then, I can't do more than a 3, really. Monday is going to be a nightmare. He just didn't listen to me about that. If he's going to offer help, he's got to listen to me. I mean, Monday coming out of me, it's a day out for him. It's a day off for his family. 3 at best, I'm afraid. It's not good.
So you don't think the ride-out's going to make any difference?
Oh, I think I might be ill that day.
Okay, I think that says it all. Thank you both.
Sure, thanks.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so I think we can see the size of the problem that we had, and I think, what I have to say is, like we did with Mick, we needed to confront that. We needed to get the managers to understand what they were doing. And in the same way as with the techs, we needed to get them to understand that the way they treat their people has an effect, and you can't treat everybody the same. You do have to take into account the people that are working for you and the differences in personality, and therefore how they would like their experience to be. So with the managers, very much like with the techs, we took them through programs and events where we were equipping them to behave differently, to get them engaged with the brand. We're getting them to coach their people rather than telling them what to do, to get away from the stats in terms of using it as a stick and really helping them to try and use that to develop their people. So I'm hoping that will move. So I think that leaves us and brings us back to the question. When grumpy tech meets grumpy customer, this can't end well, or can it? Well, I'd like to hand back to Morris for a few minutes in the film that we made before we came out here to tell you a bit more about that.
So when grumpy customer meets grumpy tech, can it end well? Well, of course it can. We've spent the last 4 or 5 years working with brand biology, and our NPS results and our engagement results show that it can end well. What the NPS data told us was that even when you didn't fix a fault, but you were really nice and friendly and demonstrated sort of compassion with the customer, you actually got a better score than if you fixed the fault but were rude. So we'd spent the first 3 or 4 years worrying about fixing the fault first time. That's what the whole industry talked about. You must fix customers' faults first time. And our ka-ching moment was actually, yes, that is important, but it's actually more important to get the right behaviours demonstrated by the people talking to the customer. To improve the customer experience, we've been bringing more and more activities in-house. So we ran a big programme in the northern part of the UK, where we have brought all of our engineering touchpoints in-house. So all of our engineers are employed by Virgin Media. It's a massive programme where we had to hire people, we had to transfer people from some of the existing contractors. And we had to, it wasn't just a case of come and work for Virgin and do the same thing. We wanted to change the way they thought and acted and behaved in front of customers. So brand biology were key to that. We ran some huge training programs with the managers and with all of the people to make sure that we had the behaviours, we had the attitudes, we had the engagement really early on. We monitored it very carefully right through the pilot, and then when we went live to make sure we'd done everything to have engaged people. So we've seen a huge improvement in the cost effectiveness of our operation over the last 6 or 7 years. So we've seen engagement go up, we've seen customer satisfaction as measured by NPS go up, and we've seen our costs come down. We've seen churn, the lovely measure we use in the cable industry for customers leaving us, also come down. So we've had almost a perfect triangular of square over the last 4 or 5 years as performance has improved. I guess with hindsight, great thing, I'd like to have started earlier. And probably now with looking right across Virgin, making sure that everybody who touches a customer, whether you're in a retail store, you're in a sales contact centre, you're in a customer contact centre, wherever you are, you understand this sort of philosophy. For any of you out there who are not quite over the line, you believe me, it absolutely does work. And we are in such a great position now in the UK, in our market, in a very, very competitive market. But we've got the results to show that there is no choice, you just have to do it. Whether you haven't started or whether you're faltering, or even if you've done well and you think you can change direction, I say don't, just keep going, because it is just fundamental to the success of your organisation. Putting your people first, your customers second, and that's what looks after your shareholders. We believe that passionately at Virgin Media, and we think it makes a huge difference. And we're not changing our strategy one bit. We're going to keep going, keep investing to keep our customer satisfaction at record levels.
Okay, I'd just for a few minutes like to share some of those numbers with you that Maurice has mentioned, because obviously it is a success story. And just to give you a bit of a feel for it, I mentioned earlier that when we first started this programme, their NPS score was in a negative. And this gives you a bit of a view of what happened over the period of time. And this is over a 4-year period. And what I'd like to point out is this didn't happen overnight. If you look at that early day of that graph, it was a bit up and down. It went, we had a spike early on and it kind of meandered around a bit. And it wasn't until we got the critical mass, which is over 2,000 people through the programme, that we really started to see things soaring. And the far end of that is really what we've been doing in the last couple of years, which I'll say a bit more about in a moment. Maurice mentioned, and you saw it on the screen there, some research that they'd undertaken in NPS. And this is actually statistically valid because they took 6 months' worth of their NPS results and they tracked them. And they came up with some interesting things that Maurice mentioned, but I want to say 1 or 2 others. Because as Maurice said, what they found out from this research was if you resolve the customer's problem, but you are rude, unhelpful, and lying, then you will get a worse score than if you didn't fix the problem, but actually were helpful and friendly and great with the customer, which was a real turning moment for them. But I think the thing I'd like to say to you is companies spend thousands sometimes of dollars, millions in fact, on trying to fix things that sometimes you can't fix because the reality out there is traffic does get in the way, things do go wrong, there are faults in things, and you can spend loads and loads of money and time trying to fix that, which you'll probably never be able to do. So why not invest that money in your people? Because this shows that actually is the thing that's going to drive advocacy and get better results. So that was what Maurice was talking about. I also think it's worth mentioning this because and this is what the next phase of our programme has really been about in the last couple of years, which was a really interesting thing that came out of the research. Because it showed that if you resolve the customer's issue, but the customer doesn't really notice what you did, in other words, it's all a bit bland, you'll get, on average, a +26. But if you actually resolve the issue and you're polite, friendly, and helpful, and in this case, the customer does really notice it, you'll get a +74, which is a 48% difference. It's enormous. So our programme in the last couple of years has really been focusing on how do we get the text to get the customer to really notice the change in behaviour? How do we drive those 9s and 10s? I also want to show you, though, because what Virgin Media did want to do is to prove that it was behaviour that was really changing things. So they were tracking through their NPS research words and positive words about the behaviours of their text, and they were tracking that to see what was happening, and this is what it looked like. But they wanted to correlate that with their NPS scores. And I actually think that's quite interesting, because I think it proves the point that the two things were coming together, that the positive behaviours and the behaviours that were helpful and friendly were actually driving their NPS data. So to the last couple of years, Maurice mentioned a project in the northwest of England, which I tell you it rains there all the time. And we were working with them on changing the whole structure and the organisation and changing the way things were actually done. It was actually called Project Iris, and we ran a pilot. And I just think it's probably worth saying one or two things about that in recent years, because the whole focus of this was on trying to drive 9s and 10s, trying to get the customer to notice the text behaviour. And the real message behind it was think customer, not job or process, which is what that NPS data showed us. They brought all the installs in-house, so everything was being done by Virgin Media people, because one of the things they realised is if the brand is driving our performance, then we have to get everybody in the organisation on behaving on brand and driving that together. So they brought everything in-house. During this pilot, and it's a big pilot because it was across the northwest of England, there were absolutely no customer complaints. And that was out of 32,000 customer interactions. And their heartbeat score, which is their internal employee engagement score, was sitting at 98%. So we knew we were getting something right. I'd like to say to you that would never have worked if we hadn't have done the earlier programme, and wouldn't have worked without doing what I showed you, some of what I showed you going on earlier on, because we'd won the hearts and minds of the techs, of the managers, who desperately now wanted to get this right and wanted to try and drive that advocacy. So I think, to answer the question that Maurice gave us, apart from driving up their NPS, the other one was, does it feel like there are 20,000 people behind me when I knock on the customer's door? And the answer was a resounding yes. And since then, we've been working in their sales division, in their contact centres, and in their business-to-business division, taking this message out and trying to do the same with them. But I have to say, representing their reality, not the text one. It has to always be driven and in the reality of the organisation we're working in. You saw this a little bit earlier, so Richard stole my thunder. Because I have to agree with Richard Branson, because he's obviously got it right, so it's quite nice to stand on the stage and be able to say that, because his view, as Maurice told you, is that you've got to put your people first. You've got to engage with them, but you engage them with the brand and to deliver the behaviours you want in the way you want it done, and they will then deliver to the customer and get the kind of results that you saw earlier and that I've shown you on the screen here. So, in terms of getting a result, we did just that. What I'd like to do, though, is, and I firmly believe this, is that the last word has to go to the customer. Because now that we're enjoying success, we really want and need to keep listening to what the customer is saying to us. And I have to say that Virgin Media are not complacent. As Maurice said, we're going to carry on with this, and they're actually very humble about the fact that we don't always get it right. But when we do get it right now, it's really nice to hear. So I'd like to share with you some verbatim comments taken from some surveys over the last 6 months where customers of Virgin Media are talking about their experience. And I think you can hear from this exactly how the techs are really focusing on getting those 9s and 10s and trying to achieve that advocacy.
Your engineer came on the day I moved in. It was a busy day, but he was so very helpful. Not only did he install the television and help me set it up, he also helped me move a couple of pieces of furniture that the removal men had left in stupid places. I'm disabled, so this really made a difference to me. I was so appreciative, and I hope this doesn't get him in trouble. He really couldn't have been more helpful.
My young daughter is addicted to Raster Mouse. We had a fair few of the programmes recorded on the old box. Of course, when that had to be replaced, we realised that we would have to lose the recordings. I explained this to my daughter and she was really upset and shed a few tears. The engineer was so kind, he explained that she'd be able to record more shows in the future. But that wasn't it. I was stunned when later in the day he actually called me to say that if I put the TV on now, Rasta Mouse was on, and he reminded me how to record it. Unbelievable.
He just made us feel that nothing was too much trouble, and even made sure all the other Virgin services were tested before he left. And all of this on a Friday evening at 7 o'clock.
The integrity of Virgin is outstanding compared to any other company or organisation I have ever come into contact with. There is no one else out there who respects and treats their customers the way Virgin does.
Okay, I'd just like to say a few final things. I'd like to say to you, power to the people, because that's what Virgin believes in and what Richard believes in. And if you give that power to your people, and remember, it is your people that dictate the performance of your brand, you can get brilliant results too. And I think if you think about that and think about what will happen if you don't do it, in other words, you allow your people to decide how to do this for themselves, then perhaps it's a bit of a no-brainer to do what Virgin Media have been doing. I'd like to thank you for listening. Thank you very much. Delighted to be here in Miami. Lovely to actually be over in this part of the world, and it'd be great to talk to some of you while we're here over the next couple of days. I'd like to thank Deb and her team for inviting us over here. I do want to introduce you, though, to a couple of important people, to the guys that you've been meeting today, but in their real lives. This is Matt and Andy.
Thank you.
And I would like to say a final thank you to a couple of my colleagues, because quite often what happens, you come and do things like this and it's us who get on the stage and get the thanks and the applause, so thank you for that. But there are a couple of people behind the scenes that have been helping, and as you can see, we had to bring a few things over the pond with us, including ourselves. We were rehearsing by the pool yesterday until it started raining on us, but we stuck it out, we are Brits. But a couple of my colleagues who are here today and will be staying over the 2 days with me. I don't know where you are, Kat and Nick. Yeah, I think they're both around. Yeah, Kat's controlling everything at the back. I just want to say thank you to them too, because without them, we would have never been able to put this show on. So I hope you enjoyed it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Great job. Great job. That was my second time seeing it, and I was still standing there in awe. Really brings that people part of the customer experience to life. So thank you, Jill, for making the trip over and bringing your team.